Hi, thank you for joining us. My name is Julie McKean and I head up the media practice for the executive search firm Odgers Berndtson. This is another of our series of One Question for 2021, where I speak to leaders in the media field to see what they might be optimistic about for 2021. Let's be honest, it's been a pretty tough year for a lot of people. And I think it's about time we all turned our directions towards a little bit more positivity. So today I'm joined by Jemima Villanueva. Hi, Jemima.
Hey, Jules.
Thank you for coming. Jemima heads up sales and marketing for The Atlantic outside of the US. She is the executive director of The Atlantic, having established their London office 3 years ago. Most of her career has been spent working at or for premium publishers, mainly on the international side of their business, indulging her love of travel and speaking foreign languages. Immediately prior to The Atlantic, she took a diversion into the world of programmatic ad tech, which is really interesting. And that gave her a fascinating look under the hood of what happens when you're acquired by the largest media agency group. So Jemima, thank you for joining us today for our Just One Question.
Thanks for having me, Jules.
And given it's been such a crazy year, particularly in your sector, do tell me, what are you excited about or optimistic about for 2021?
Well, I mean, I think there are lots of bits and pieces to be optimistic about, but without doubt, the outstanding candidate for the answer to that question is on the editorial side. So in the space that The Atlantic occupies, which is sort of quality, premium global journalism, it's this huge surge that we've seen in the need for and the demand for trusted sources of information. You know, all the sort of earth-moving issues that have come up this year, like race, the pandemic, the US elections, have really just left people's heads spinning, and they need somewhere to go for guidance, right? So, I mean, I know that other premium news-based organizations have also seen rises in traffic and subscriptions, but really at The Atlantic, it has been quite literally off the chart. I mean, we couldn't even have modeled for this kind of growth. I mean, so the thing that brings readers to The Atlantic is the journalism, but we wouldn't have been able to process those subscriptions. I mean, one weekend when our editor-in-chief published a particularly sort of explosive expose on I don't want to mention his name, you know, the T word, Trump, but we received 20,000 new subscription requests in one weekend. So the team were working, I know, it's insane. So if we hadn't had an adequate tech stack or a UX, the team, even though they were working all weekend and all night, they wouldn't have been able to process it.
Sure.
So I think the takeaway here is that people are looking more than ever for quality journalism, and they're prepared to pay for it.
Yeah,
you know, that mindset about getting used to the fact that you have to pay for quality journalism. I think that's a real positive. Obviously, going into 2021, retention of those subscriptions is going to be the shift in the way that the strategy has to evolve. Early signs are incredibly positive. We renewed, so we launched in September of last year. Started the renewal process in September of this year. That takes a month or so to allow for sort of, you know, chasing and changing of payment methods and all that. We've seen an 83% retention rate at this stage.
Wow, that's really impressive. Do you think that all of the events of 2020 in terms of fake news and you know, the kind of turmoil in the political landscape and COVID and reporting that accurately and fake news around that have played into people recognizing that they need quality journalism a bit more than perhaps they realized before, that you know, looking for truth, you need to be careful where you go? Have you seen that playing out?
Yeah, totally. And there's been so much anecdotal evidence to support that. You know, I had an email from somebody amongst the C-suite at WPP saying, you know, just wanted to say, I don't know what I'd do without The Atlantic's reporting during this. You're going to have a whole load of new fans after this. You know, it's really kept me centered. You know, people don't, you know, something that I sort of came across a week or so ago. I was presenting one of our sort of audience segments to somebody, and it was the business decision maker segment. And we've been doing a lot of work on our sort of first party data and building out those segments. And one of the things that came up was that the section that they most read was the family section on the website, and she sort of picked this up, said, oh, that's unusual. And I think it's because I know it's because we have the research and the insights on the back end to back that up. But when in times like this, you go for your moral compass on how to discuss these big issues with your family, you don't go to a parenting site. You go to your trusted source of sort of moral urgency to give you that compass of how do I tackle these subjects with my children? How do I tell them about Trump? How do I tell them? I'm always getting asked by my children. They'll say or do something, and they'll say, "Is that racist, Mum?" And you need to you need fodder to give them back the answer that they deserve.
Yeah, how interesting. So actually, is it a case that rather than looking at customers in sort of fairly one-dimensional terms about, this is our group of C-suites, or this is the people who travel a lot for work, or this is it, actually really looking at them in the round as a person with their family state, their life stage, and incorporated in that, because they're coming to you with many different motivations, it sounds like, as a sort of a trusted editor of work.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, the reader research work that we did to underpin our subscriber strategy was built around a framework called, it's quite a classic marketing framework. You may have come across it in your work. It's called Jobs to be Done. Yeah. So we look at the Atlantic in terms of what is the role that it performs in these people's lives. And that's how we bracketed and grouped our different audience segments for the subscription launch.
Right.
That. So, not looking at the products that we want to push, not looking at our own sections and how we organize ourselves, but understanding, do we provide, a quick lunchtime fix? And actually one of the conclusions that we came to and accept and understand is that we're very much read as a companion media. Yeah, we say, not to go into the sales spiel, but we say we are the why to the what. So you might get the what from like a daily news cycle, a daily newspaper, more bullet pointy. When you feel the need to go a little deeper on something, you would turn to the Atlantic for that.
That is very interesting, because I think because you spent some time also in the programmatic ad side of it yourself, that actually there was a period there, wasn't there, where there was a sort of very much a push mentality of content out without, and actually even the kind of the changing nature of what people were looking for in a chief marketing officer had sort of totally lost sight of the customer. And then we're beginning to see at the beginning of 2019 this move towards away from just growth in isolation of customer and back towards like a chief customer officer. And I think that probably runs through some of what you're saying as well, that you're understanding the role means you understand the person and what they need you to do in different moments. And so are there some of those, presumably those principles will carry over into 2021 for you?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, with the, again, not to get too techie, but with the gradual retiring of the third party cookie, we have to look at, I mean, not that the majority of our business doesn't come from sort of data-based audience targeting. Yeah. It comes from sort of much more involved partnerships that, so many of our conversations with clients these days aren't with their sort of media or advertising teams. They're from their sort of sustainability teams or CSR teams or talent teams. But yeah, but the part of our business that does rely on on database audience targeting, that's going to gradually be removed. So yes, we have to look at different ways of understanding a reader and how they behave on our site and who they really are. I think it also ties into the idea that identities are the concept of identity is so fluid these days. People don't want, especially the younger generation, they don't want to be tied down to a static description or static image of themselves. It's very fluid. I know it's a crazy example, but when you see Gen Z, the way that they use Instagram, they use it very differently from how we use it. You and I have probably got a lovely checkerboard of well curated images of our wonderful lives. But they have one or two images max. And I asked my son why he does that, and he said, well, yeah, but I change all the time. I'm not the same as I was like a month ago, and that sort of thing. So that idea of a sort of fluid identity, and like you said, so not pigeonholing readers via you know, a bog standard demographic that's been around for 50 years is very important.
That's very interesting, isn't it? Because those archetypes, those tribes have broken down. You're no longer a goth or a raver or hippie or whatever. You kind of, you know, you might be wearing one hat to Coachella and another one to Glastonbury. You are two very different streamed identities. It's fascinating. So in terms of when you as a business are looking at 2021 and all of these things to, you know, reasons to be cheerful, what are the implications for talent, do you think, that organisations need to look at? You alluded to the fact that you've invested heavily in, you know, in the tech stack and understanding your audience and subscriptions and presumably lots of financial modelling. But, you know, are there some of those that you need to carry over to other businesses in the industry for 2021?
Yeah, absolutely. You know, I was talking to Jemima Jones, who's our SVP of partnerships. She heads up the partnerships, you know, everywhere, all over the world. And we were discussing just quite how radically it has affected our recruiting. It's not something that was sort of instantly, you know, obvious to me, but something, I mean, we had to sort of break down and rebuild our commercial strategy, you know, around May of this year. Right. And something that has always been really important, but is absolutely crucial now, is this, is for sort of commercial staff to have these deep, existing trusted relationships with our clients, because a lot of the tools that we've lent on, as you know, the sort of networking, meeting new people, the socializing, that's been taken away from us. So you know, the ability to sort of business develop and prospect, you know, some sectors are kind of dormant right now, you know, like, for example, the travel industry, very, very sadly. So we are looking for people with deep existing trusted relationships. Also, something I alluded to earlier, sort of some of our biggest and most successful partnerships are not necessarily via the traditional media channel. They don't go media agency, head of media or client. Right. We run programs with CSR departments. We run programs with comms departments, with events teams. You know, even HR departments, if they sort of feel that they have an issue with the perception of their company or their sector and they're finding it difficult to recruit, well, the Atlantic can help them to move the needle on that sort of thing. So in order to be able to identify these potential partnerships, you know, and navigate complex global, I mean, have you ever tried to navigate one of the consultancy firms? It's hard work.
Yes.
So we need very senior staff who can understand the wider business in which a client operates. I think that's temporarily a sad thing, because I think having new, younger, less experienced people in your sales team definitely injects a kind of fresh enthusiasm and new skill set. And I have to believe that that's temporary, and that element will come back. But for the moment, we're focusing on doing more for a smaller group of clients. We've narrowed down the amount of people that the amount of companies that we target, and we're looking at our current suite of products to see how we can do more for our best clients with what we've got. And therefore we don't need a sort of a whole layer of sort of maybe younger, maybe less experienced salespeople that are doing the kind of, you know, pounding the streets, knocking on doors kind of things, because that's paused for now. So, and
actually, when you get back into offices and those people can learn in a group environment, that makes it very different, doesn't it? You know, it's very hard to get the work experience when everybody's on Zoom. You're not going to get that sort of group.
It's really hard, and it's an essential part of of your suite of tools to be able to build that trust. But, you know, I've been thinking a lot about this recently. I've been writing an article about it. There are some things that you can do. You know, it's time, if you're looking for work right now, you should really make that list of all your contacts, because from experience, I'm sure you've done it and I've done it in the past, it actually always ends up being a lot bigger than you realize. And that's something that you should stress more in conversations with prospective employers. Perhaps, you know, play down the things like, oh, I'm a demon networker, I can work a room like nobody else, because, you know, you can't work a Zoom, can you?
So kind of a takeaway is like a kind of a depth rather than a breadth sometimes. You know, coming into the
for the moment, focus. I think that the thing, you know, there are all the general characteristics that are rising to the surface more during COVID now. There's, you know, giving sort of introverts, more of a level playing field.
Yes.
There's, the words that keep coming up are resilience, aren't they? And sort of flexibility. Yes. I think accountability in your style of your sales style. I don't think you can have these kind of maverick characters who disappeared off to the pub every day at 4 o'clock. 12 o'clock.
I mean,
Fridays.
Where are they? They're in their kitchen now, aren't they?
That's what I mean. Yeah, and these people, there are a lot of people who would sort of made their careers on sort of posturing and gesturing and just appearing senior. Well, I'm sure their cat is very impressed right now, but it's not what's working in a commercial organisation right now.
Nowhere to hide.
Yeah, nowhere to hide.
Yeah, interesting. That's quite fascinating, Jemima. Thank you so much. I really appreciate you taking the time. It's there's so much in there to think about and to translate across the whole of the media industry. And I think, as you said, a lot of you guys obviously worked incredibly hard in May to do that kind of accelerate the pivot that you were no doubt planning to make, or into subscription. But having done the hard work on the lead up to that is something that a lot of people probably haven't managed to do, and we'll be playing catch up now. So thank you so much for taking the time.
You're most welcome.
Fingers crossed that all these great things come true in 2021 and we all get vaccinated. So thank you, Jemima.
Yes. Oh, you're most welcome. Thanks for having me, Jules.
Thanks, Jemima. Bye.